Welcome back to another episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother? In this alternate Naruto universe, one small twist changes everything. What if Naruto wasn't alone? What if he grew up with someone stronger, smarter, and born to rewrite destiny itself? Today, we dive deeper into the story of Kaito Uzumaki, Naruto's powerful older brother whose existence shakes the entire Shinobi world. New alliances form, new enemies rise, and the future of Konoha may never be the same again. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because this episode is about to change everything. The two continued their way back to the Hyuga compound, the mood much quieter now, the cheerful bustle of the village fading into the background. After dropping off Hataru, Kaito returned home. He immediately created a shadow clone to help him prepare for the mission to the Land of Water. Mission prep. The clone efficiently checked and restocked his shinobi pouch with kunai, shuriken, and smoke bombs. He made sure to pack his custom-made, tri-pronged kunai. Sealing work. Kaito spent a brief time reinforcing the 10 copies of the healing seal he gave Tsunade, ensuring they would remain stable and fully charged for her tests. He also began compiling the notes from the Great Toad Sage's archives, specifically researching the potential nature energy regulator Gamamaru mentioned, making progress on how to integrate it into his own design. Sage mode practice. He created another shadow clone to gather nature energy in the backyard, helping to fine-tune his control and increase the duration of his imperfect sage mode. The distinctive aroma of something cooking, and mercifully not burning, wafted through the house. Kushina was making a special dinner, likely for Kakoshi's unexpected visit. When the dinner hour arrived, Kaito heard a knock and saw Kushina cheerfully open the door. Which normally would not have been a problem, but his bias was showing in this case though. It was not justice in its truest state, as he focused on Asta as a scapegoat merely because he had a devil himself. When most of the reincarnated elves were actually members of royalty, and amongst the Magic Knight they were in the Golden Dawn. If asked, William Vengeance would probably reveal everything, as he and Patry, going by Licht at the time, shared a body until recently. They had the top 3 members of Midnight Sun still alive and out there somewhere. Damnatio did not need to laser focus on Asta merely because he had a devil, since trust in the Magic Knights could still take a dive regardless. Your brother and I are going on an adventure. Dinner was a lively affair, filled with Kushina's boundless enthusiasm and Naruto's endless questions about missions. Towards the end of the meal, Kushina gave Kakashi a stern look. Kakashi-kun, I'm counting on you to keep my Kai-kun safe. He can be a little too reckless sometimes, you know. Kakashi sighed dramatically. I'll do my best, Kushina-ne. Protecting reckless young prodigies is kind of my specialty, after all. He glanced pointedly at Kaito, who simply smirked back. After dinner, Kaito walked Kakashi to the door. So, Kiri, Kakashi murmured, his tone becoming serious. You seem to know more than you let on. Any advice for your captain? Kaito leaned against the doorframe, his hands in his pockets. Just watch out for the 7th swordsman and the Jinchuriki. If the bloodline purge has started, things will be messy. We need to find out who is behind the Mizukage and report back. We're spies, not invaders. Kakashi nodded slowly. Got it. Be ready to leave at 8 a.m. sharp. I don't like waiting. Kaito nodded. See you at the gate. Kaito sat on the porch of his family's house early in the morning, fastening the straps of his sandals. Karen stood beside him. So, Kai-and-I, Karen said, breaking the silence. Kaito hummed and looked at Karen. Yeah? He asked as he stood up and adjusted the straps of his bag. How long will you be gone on this mission? Kaito let out a small sigh. I'm not sure, Karen. It might be a week, or it might be a few months. It really depends on how things go, he explained. Hopefully quick, you know. He then asked, by the way, how's your water nature transformation training coming along? Karen's face twisted with frustration. I still can't do it, she admitted. Kaito offered her a reassuring smile and gently ruffled her hair. Don't worry. It takes time. Nature transformations aren't usually taught until someone becomes a genin. I'm sure you'll get it soon, Karen. Karen's cheeks turned a little pink at his encouragement. Kaito took a bite of a half-finished sandwich. They heard Naruto's voice coming from inside. The door slid open, and Naruto walked out looking annoyed. "Mom, why do I have to go to the academy today?" Naruto whined. Behind him, Kushina emerged and locked the door. She gave Naruto a stern look. "You're going, and that's final, Naruto. Even if it's not super challenging, you still need to have a normal life, make friends, and learn the basics, you know." Naruto scrunched up his nose. She doesn't get bored listening to those boring lectures. Kushina pressed her lips together. "If you're not feeling challenged at the academy, then don't worry. I'll just make your afternoon training sessions harder from now on." Naruto's eyes went wide. That's fine," he mumbled. Kushina nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Then let's get going." As they made their way through the village streets, they soon came across Hataru walking side by side with Neji and Hinata. Naruto perked up. "Yo, Hinata. Neji. Hatarune. How are you doing?" he called out. Hataru, Hinata, and Neji returned the greetings. Hinata gave a small wave, her cheeks tinged pink. Soon, their group merged, walking together toward the academy. Kushina began talking quietly with Hataru. Naruto pestered Neji about a sparring match, and Karen chatted quietly with Hinata. As they walked, Kaito noticed that Hinata kept sneaking glances his way. Finally, he couldn't hold back a teasing grin. "Hey, Hinata-chan. You need help with anything?" Hinata's face turned an even deeper shade of red. She blurted, "Gee, good morning, Kaito-senpai," then quickly ducked behind Karen. Kaito shrugged, amused. "Guess that's all I'm getting, huh?" he muttered. Soon, they reached the academy's entrance. The students said their goodbyes and ran off. Kushina followed Kaito and Hataru toward the village gates. They arrived at Konoha's main gates and spotted Kakashi leaning against a tree. He looked up as they approached and quickly hid his Aika novel. Kushina waved enthusiastically. "Good, you're early today." Kakashi laughed nervously. "I took your warning seriously," he said. Kushina grinned, took out a sealing scroll, and handed it to him. "Here you go, Kakashi. I packed lunches for all three of you, plus some snacks. Make sure you all eat well, and don't skip meals." Kakashi took the bag gratefully. "Thanks, Kushina-ne." Kaito raised a hand. "Yo," he greeted casually, bumping fists with Kakashi. Hataru bowed politely. "Good morning, Captain Kakashi," she said. Kakashi waved a hand dismissively. "No need to be so formal, Hataru. Just Kakashi is fine." Hataru nodded. "Right. Kakashi-senpai." Kushina grinned mischievously at Kakashi. "Just don't go around breaking some poor girl's heart in the land of water, you know?" Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck, letting out a sheepish laugh. "I'll keep that in mind." Kushina then turned to Kaito and Hataru. "And Kakashi, make sure these two don't do anything funny while they're on the mission, okay?" She winked. "Mom," Kaito groaned, while Hataru turned bright red. Just then, Tsunade and Shizune walked up. Tsunade grinned. "Any excuse to get away from my paperwork for a minute," she said. Kushina hugged both Kaito and Hataru. "Stay safe out there, both of you, and come back as soon as possible, you know." All three of them nodded. Kaito grinned. "Yeah, we'll be back in no time, you know." They walked toward the village's main gates. Suddenly, a loud poof of white smoke burst in front of them, startling a few villagers. Kaito sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Ugh. I can already tell who this is." As the smoke cleared, Jiraiya appeared, striking a dramatic pose atop a human-sized toad. "Listen up and take a good look. Behold the legendary ninja, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage." Jiraiya jumped off, and the toad vanished. Before he could say anything else, Kushina grabbed his ear, yanking him closer. "Where have you been, you old perv?" Kushina shouted. "Why haven't you visited Naruto yet? You're his godfather, remember?" Jiraiya cowered. "Oh ouch, okay. I'm sorry." Kushina smacked him on the head. "That's not good enough. You're meeting him today. Got that?" Tsunade sighed. She glanced at Kakashi, Kaito, and Hataru. "All right, you three. You know your mission details. Good luck. And please try to keep a low profile in the land of water. All three answered in unison, "Hi, Hokage-sama." They turned to leave, but Jiraiya suddenly yelled, "Wait, hold on." He slipped out of Kushina's grip. "I'm going with them," he declared. The massive mana wave swept over her, thus petrifying her on the spot, yet leaving Asta unfazed or even aware that it passed him by. Since no one with mana was around to inform him that such a thing had just happened. Back with Asta, who had realized that everyone but him had been petrified somehow. There was no way he could find out if there was anything left around, as not having no mana meant that he could not detect it either. So that would have been pointless to try at all. These statues that all his friends and comrades had been turned into did not get off any kind of key, but he just had to hope that they were still alive despite the state they were in at the moment. "We're trying to keep the peace, remember?" Jiraiya looked crestfallen, but Kushina grabbed him by the ear again. "And you're not running off either. You're going to meet Naruto today, like I said." Jiraiya yelped in pain. "Oh, ow, Kushina, let go." Fine, I'll meet him, I promise." Tsunade shook her head, mildly amused, and motioned for Shizen to follow her back to the Hokage tower. Kaito had already had enough. This is going to take forever, he thought. Without a word, he placed his hands on Kakashi and Hataru. In an instant, they vanished, leaving Jiraiya mid-speech. They reappeared in a forest clearing. Kakashi stumbled slightly but quickly regained his footing, while Hataru tripped and landed on the ground. This did not seem to be magic that was constant but instant and apparently overpowered. "This might not work, but it's with a shot," Asta thought as he took out the demon-destroying sword. First placing Nero against the wall of the base as he wanted something to support her, as he did not. He was not going to push that hard but did not want her fall over, as there was nothing that keeps her standing upright if just push against her. "Here goes nothing," he said, pushing his third sword against Nero where her hand was on herself at the moment. "Let's get moving." With that, Kakashi leapt onto a nearby tree and set off. Kaito and Hataru exchanged a glance before following him. After a short journey, they arrived at Degarashi Port. "So, what's the plan, Kakashi-senpai?" Hataru asked as they walked through the busy port. Kakashi hummed in thought. "First, we need to find a ship heading to the land of water. I'll take care of that. Meanwhile, you two should find an inn where we can change into disguises. We don't want to stand out." Kaito and Hataru nodded in agreement and split up from Kakashi. Kakashi and Kaito sat waiting for Hataru in the living room of the inn they had booked. Kakashi, without his mask, had 2 bold streaks of purple face paint and wore a green coat and a pink scarf. Kaito wore a black undershirt, a light lavender jacket, and medium gray cropped pants. Using a seal, his hair was now light blonde, and his eyes a vibrant green. The door to the room slid open, and Hataru stepped in. Kaito glanced up, and his jaw nearly dropped. Her hair was long, flowing freely, and she wore a pink, knee-length tunic over purple undersleeves. Seeing Kaito's reaction, Hataru smiled. "So, how do I look, Kaikuan?" she asked softly. "Wow," Kaito said without thinking. He quickly coughed. "Ahem, you look great, Hataru." He quickly averted his eyes. There was the ability to use it at a distance, like when Asta was brought in just when he was needed, while the reincarnated elves were causing havoc everywhere. "Let me try it then." He went about trying to use the demon-destroying sword on Vanessa this time around, but it did not work. Either his first thought was correct because the magic used had already worn off, or because this magic was far stronger than him. Her Byakugan was concealed, and her midnight blue hair transformed into a pale, silvery gray color. Kakashi, finding the situation amusing, smirked. "Well, if Kaito is done staring at Hataru, maybe we can discuss our plan now?" "I wasn't staring at her." Kaito stammered, his face turning red. Kakashi chuckled softly before motioning for them to sit at the small coffee table. "The mission plan. Here's the plan," Kakashi began, spreading a map across the table. "We'll be splitting up once we leave Degarashi Port. It'll help us cover more ground. We'll board 2 separate ships." He handed Kaito and Hataru 2 tickets. "The 2 of you will travel together on this ship. It departs at 4 p.m. from Harbor 8. Being manaless probably not made him immune to it, but not detectable to anyone using mana to search as usual. Checking all the room she could as the base could move around without Henry. So getting around was not easier than normal. Though when she came to Asta's room she did notice something that was not supposed to be there. Standing in his room was Noelle for whatever reason. Nero could not really understand why, at least not fully. The expression froze on her stone face shown she had convinced herself of the reason she was there was not because of her apparently feeling for him. The door to the aquarium bar burst open, and the supernovas poured out. They took one look at the sea and moved into action. They ignored the looks from the Sunny's crew, and Ace, still standing stunned, as they prepared for battle. But Zoro stepped in front of them, swords in hand. "Let us handle this," he said calmly, nodding to his captain. Luffy returned the nod. "Usopp," he shouted. 5 ships incoming." Luffy grinned. "Shishishi. That's not so many. Frankie." "Ready. And we've got 100 barrels of cola stored in the hold." "Perfect. On 3, 2, 1. Fire." The Thousand Sunny roared to life. Kaito scratched his head awkwardly. "I'll just stick with Kaito. It's a common enough name anyway." Kakashi leaned forward slightly. "Kaito, before we split up, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. It's about the Akatsuki. You mentioned the masked man is part of it." Hataru blinked in confusion. "Akatsuki?" Kaito sighed. "Yeah, I would have told you both sooner, but you were busy with ANBU work. I've sealed this place with privacy seals, so we're good to talk." "All right," Kaito began. "A while back, I had a few shadow clones running around gathering information. One of them came across a mercenary organization called the Akatsuki. They're made up of shinobi at least A rank or higher." He paused. "What really caught my attention was when my clone found out they were discreetly gathering information on the Jinchuriki." "Jinchuriki?" Hataru asked. "They're the people who have tailed beasts sealed inside them," Kakashi explained. Hataru's eyes widened. "So, like Naruto-kun?" Kaito nodded. "Exactly. That meant the leader of the organization could control them, which led me to suspect the masked man." Kakashi leaned back slightly. "And you're certain it's him?" "I suspected it," Kaito admitted. "But I needed confirmation. Conqueror's Haki, several of them thought at once. That plan of yours." Luffy said slowly, "I'll go along with it. But if it puts my nakama in danger, I won't forgive you." The unspoken or else lingered in the air. Law met his gaze and gave a curt nod. No more words were exchanged. One by one, the ships peeled away from the Thousand Sunny and disappeared into the sea, swallowed by horizon and mist. When the last one vanished, Luffy finally turned. His grin returned, bright and familiar. "Shishishi Haya Ace. What are you doing here?" The sea calmed as the last echoes of cannon fire faded into the wind. Smoke curled upward from the scorched water where 5 marine ships had once stood. However, Nero had managed to counter the magic used once before. Thus what if her sealing magic was the needed counter this time around? Nero, after attempting trying, stumbled back, visibly shocked at something she apparently realized after what was a failed try to restore Charmy. "I see this ended up in failure as well," Asta said. "I did not fail and neither did you, Asta," she told him. "How could that be possible? The two of them must have failed, as if they did not. That meant there was nothing to unlock or undo," she said. The two realized that the magic used did not merely turn everyone to stone, as then either of their magic should have been able to undo it. Asta's anti-magic through just removing the magic itself, while Nero's would have unlocked it. Instead, it was a reality-altering magic that, rather than turning everyone to stone, altered reality itself, making as if they were always statues. Thus there was nothing to undo or unlock in that case, as this was their normal state now. Nero looked at herself and wondered just how powerful it was, that spell, that it altered reality itself, and just how truly lucky she was. What if it was not just Asta using the demon-destroying sword alone that undid the magic? "Do not even think about." She looked up to see Asta patting her shoulders. You are thinking about what if you incorporated this magic into yourself. Giving yourself a third form as a side effect, Asta told her. As even if she did now have a third form, there was no telling what it would be like, or even if she can shift in and out of it at will. The last time she was trapped in her anti-bird form for over 500 years. Though the two of them had looked through the base, the one black bull they were not able to find yet was actually their captain. I thought he was outside with mostly everyone else, Nero asked Asta. Though so as well, but turns out he was not there after all. Maybe he left earlier or something, he said. We should focus on the mission. He glanced at the clock on the wall. I should get going. My ship leaves at 2. The two of you should head out a few minutes after me. Blend in by walking around and acting like tourists before boarding your ship. And try to enjoy yourselves while you're in the land of water, he added with a small smirk. Kakashi stood up. We'll stay in touch through the ear clips. Be careful out there. With that, he body flickered away, leaving Kaito and Hataru alone in the room. Sighing as this once again meant that she was the only one able to move amongst the black bulls again. Though she could not help but wonder just how much had changed thanks to that huge wave of mana. If reality really had been changed for everyone other than Asta, making so that they were always statues instead of people. What happened to the past as a result? Did all of that no longer exist? Do not think about just like Asta said, she thought to herself. Nero knew that nothing would come of it as she went back to the kitchen and just ate some of the food that Charmy had cooked before being petrified like everyone else. Not thinking why it had the same effect as her normal cooking, then went back to where Noelle was now standing outside of Asta's room. Ha! Nero gasped as she noticed something was different about Noelle from just a few minutes ago. It was something that she would not have missed and nor would have Asta either when they were here before either. On the petrified Noelle's head were a pair of curved, ram-like horns. They were there on the sides of her head, sides similar to the single horn that Asta has whenever he is in his black form. They were even stone like the rest of her was and seemingly fused to her head. Then Nero realized something, that is that she felt that something was missing. Kaito pointed down the street. I saw a tea shop up ahead when we came in yesterday. Sounds good, Hataru replied, as they began walking down the snowy street toward the tea shop. It had been 3 days since they arrived in the land of water, and this was the second town they had visited. They had been traveling as a couple, sightseeing and blending in perfectly with the locals. When they reached the small tea shop, Kaito pushed the door open. An older woman greeted them warmly. They were led to a simple table near a window. After a quick glance at the menu, Kaito said, "Could I have some green tea, please? And we'd like to order breakfast as well." Hataru smiled. "I'd like some sencha tea, please." "Of course," the old woman replied. "What would you like to eat?" "I'll have a bowl of zensai," Hataru said. "I'll also get some tsukmono and natto with rice, please." "And I'll also have some tamagoyaki with rice," Kaito said. As the woman headed to the kitchen, Hataru leaned closer to Kaito. "So, Kaikuan, what do you want to do after breakfast?" "I was about to ask you the same thing," Kaito replied with a grin. Hataru tipped her head back. "There's that famous shrine on the edge of town. I've heard it's beautiful in the snow. And this town is known for its sushi, right? Maybe we can find a good place for lunch." Kaito nodded. "Yeah, sure. Sounds like a good plan." The server returned with their tea and later, their food. They both clasped their hands together and said, "Itadakimasu," before starting their meal. Hataru picked up a spoon, blowing gently on a scoop of zensai. She sighed softly. "This is really good. Want some, Kaikuan?" Kaito smiled and nodded. "Yeah, sure." Hataru scooped up a spoonful and fed it to him. He tasted it and grinned. It's good. Especially in this weather, you know?" Hataru nodded enthusiastically, her cheeks pink as she blushed. As Kaito took a bite of his tamagoyaki, he said, "We should get some souvenirs before we leave. The last town didn't have anything good." While they ate and chatted, 2 Kiri Shinobi entered the tea shop. They sat at a table behind Kaito and Hataru. "Did you hear the news, Kotochi?" one of the shinobi muttered. "The Mizukage forced that clan to hand over all their hidden jutsu. I even heard there are talks of kicking them out of Kirigakure." Kotochi let out a low snort. Serves them right. Some of those people get so full of themselves. Just because they're born with special powers, they think they can lord it over the rest of us. Kaito and Hataru exchanged a subtle look. The tension surrounding the Kekii Genkai users was clearly fueling the political unrest in the Land of Water. After finishing their breakfast, Kaito and Hataru paid for their meal and stepped out of the tea house. They walked southward down the snowy street to the massive shrine at the edge of town, exploring the area and taking photos. As they were about to leave, Hataru's eyes lit up when she noticed a small stall selling dango. "Kaikuan, look. They're selling dango," she said excitedly. "Let's buy some. They look so good." "Sure," Kaito said. They approached the stall. "Are you two a couple?" the vendor asked curiously, noting their closeness. "I don't think I've seen you here before. Where are you from?" Hataru felt her cheeks warm. "Yes, we're together," she added with a shy smile, glancing at Kaito. "We're from the land of tea. Just traveling around." Kaito nodded. "We wanted to see the snow before it gets too deep." The vendor handed them the skewers of dango. "Enjoy, and keep warm." As they strolled down the snowy street, Kaito suddenly felt a faint chakra presence coming from an alleyway they were passing. He stopped mid-step, his eyes narrowing. Noticing his abrupt pause, Hataru turned to him. "Kaikuan, what is it?" she asked. Kaito fixed his gaze on the dim alley. Near a dumpster, he spotted a small figure huddled on the ground. It was a boy, no older than 8 or 9. He wore ragged, threadbare clothes, and his bare feet rested on the icy, snow-covered ground. Kaito also sensed an unusually strong amount of chakra emanating from him. A frown crossed Kaito's face. He walked over slowly, careful not to startle him. The boy's eyes went wide as he noticed someone approaching, and he tried to scoot back. Kaito raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Hey there," he said softly. He held out one of the sticks of dango. "Here, you can have this if you're hungry." The boy's eyes flicked between the dango and Kaito, suspicion etched into his face. Hataru stepped forward. "They're still warm," she said gently. The boy hesitated, then slowly reached out and took the dango. He was not sure just how much damage the statues could take or if they could revert back to normal if they had been previous broke already. Taking a good look at about Mimosa and Rebecca, it was even more clear that the two of them had their clothes damaged somehow. They did not seem to be transported here with magic, nor did it seem like anyone carry them here either. After all, the only one that should be unaffected by whatever happened to petrify them was something only Asta seemed immune to because it affected everyone with mana. Having no mana himself meant he could not be affected at all. "Guess this truly was magic that altered reality itself," Asta said to the once again petrified Nero. "What was that struck me though?" Asta, who was looking around outside for any clues, was blindsided by something unknown, and that how he ended up where he was now. Though whatever attacked him was long gone, as looking for it again did not seem like the best option, as now Mimosa and Rebecca were here somehow. Thus might be best to just stay in the back Bull's HQ for a while, as he then went to the kitchen get something to eat. Having been out for a while had made him hungry, though something was different about the kitchen. "Where is Charmy-senpai?" Asta exclaimed. Her statue was gone and nowhere to be found at all. Having a bad feeling about this, he then went about to go check for the others that were brought in to see if anything happened to them. Everyone other than Charmy and Captain Yomi were counted for, but there was someone else that was missing as well. "First Charmy-senpai and now Vanessa-senpai as well," Asta said, having not been able to find her as well. Sure enough, the petrified Vanessa was also not where she was left previous, leading to various questions that Asta had no answers to give. However, were these statues moving around in the first place, and where had both Charmy and Vanessa gone? Not really wondered that much about Mimosa and Rebecca having moved from wherever they were previous, as he was the only person at least that was capable of moving around at the moment. With everyone else having been petrified, with it happening to Nero twice. There was also whatever knocked Asta out as well, but that happened so fast he was not even sure just what that was all. Then he also could not be sure of what seemingly had caused damage to both clothing of both Mimosa and Rebecca as well. Not wanting to use the food that was in the kitchen, he then headed back towards his room where he was planning on eating some of the stuff he had left there just in case he ever could have access to kitchen for any reason. Getting back to his room, the 4 petrified girls were still there as they were not moving. At least again it seemed. Well, that was what he would have thought at first glance, but clearly there was one of them that had moved once again, and that was Rebecca this time around. Having somehow found where he was stashing food in his room and was now holding in front of herself almost in a manner that seemed meant to be in a way as if she were presenting it to Asta. That was the appearance that she was giving off at the moment. Causing more question he could not answer at the moment to pop up. "Cannot figure anything out if I am hungry," he said as he then went to take the food from Rebecca's hands. As to why he would even eat something that a statue, even a statue of someone he knew, had managed to not only move but find something they had no business knowing its location. Led back to when he woke up and found Mimosa over top of him as he was fully sure what was going on with anyone, but he just had a hunch at what was happening and was going with that. After all, if they would move somehow in their petrified state and wanted to cause him harm, then when he was out cold or not looking would be the perfect time to do so. Since that was not happening, whatever or however they became animated was not in a manner to cause harm to him seemingly. While he was chowing down on the food, his grimoire began to glow as a pair of curved, ram-like horns appeared on the head of the petrified Noelle. She then began to move and activates her Valkyrie dress. The key difference her besides Noelle being a statue and having horns on her head. The water is not blue but black in color, along with the fact that the grimoire open is not hers but his. In fact, he could not see the grimoire of anyone else other than his own. It made sense for Rebecca not to have one, as she just did not seem to have gone through the grimoire selection process or merely did not find a usage for it. As not everyone that could use magic necessary had a grimoire of their very own. Could dwell on this fact for that long though, as quickly strike out with her lance at the floor, stabbing through and what appeared to be the another statue, completely destroying their torso in the process. The animated Noelle statue enlarged their lance so that would be outcome of their attack. Once having completed the task, they went to stand directly next to Asta, thus put themselves between him and Rebecca. Even going so far as to take the leftover food at her hand and shoving in Asta's face before the horns on her horn vanish and she goes motionless once again. "Someone must be out there if we got attack, but how to go about knowing that though?" Asta said out loud. With things the way they were right now, and him possibly being the only one not really affected by whatever turned everyone else into stone, there was no key for him to sense from anyone other than himself. He knew everyone was not dead, but at the same time, the state they were in could not really be counted as being alive, at least in the normal sense of the word. Though as he was racking his brain trying to figure out what was going and how to get a better view of his surrounding without exposing himself or the others around into too much danger. This was when his grimoire started glowing again, as that when Mimosa started moving again. Upon doing so, he noticed that on her head, unlike when Noelle was animated just a moment earlier, the horns on her head were like a mini version of the ones that he has in his black form. Pointing a finger to a location, and multiple black vines gather around the area that location and start to intertwine with each other. Flower petals sprout from the tip of the intertwining vines. The flower petals are light-colored black with several dark black spots covering the area. It was basically a black version of Magic Flower Guidepost, exactly like how Noelle's Valkyrie dress was black as well. The holographic image shown was the area around the Black Bull's HQ in extreme detail, far more than he had ever seen from whenever Mimosa used in previously in the past. Looking at this map of the area, Asta was able to get a basic grasp of what pretty much most of the forest looked like now. Just like he thought, everything that had mana, at least near the level that humans did, was turned to stone. He saw various animals and even different kinds of plants that were now petrified. Having a look around on this map, did not really seem to see any other statues of people, at least that should not be around here though. However, this also meant that he still did not know where the missing black bulls or Yami had vanished to. None of them were displayed on this map either. Though after having seen it happen twice already, Asta might have figured something out. Noelle, Rebecca, Mimosa, and Nero no longer had their grimoire anymore, but somehow their magic was now connected to his anti-magic. They were currently statues after all, thus they had no mana of their own, it seemed. Yet they were still able to use their abilities and spells through somehow access his anti-magic. The reasoning Asta had for this was that if they had mana of their own, why could not they be moving on their own? They're apparently some kind of stimulus that sparks them into action, animated them along with causing the horns on their head to appear. It was possible this why Nero's vanishes somehow thought it was curious how Mimosa and Noelle had different types though. Something that would have to be figured out another time as having these thoughts in mind. Asta looked over to where the currently petrified Nero was standing and had an idea that would hopefully work and might shed some light on at least one of the many questions he currently has. Asta thought about this if none of the petrified girls before him had their grimoire anymore, but were this able to use their abilities via the power of his own grimoire's anti-magic. He kept one hand on Nero's statue and the other on his own black book, focusing his thought this time around as he might have been doing this one his own, rather than without thinking, and or it was merely a reaction to something he was not aware at the moment. Looking at both at once, he notices his grimoire flipping to a page where Nero's name was clearly written down within the book on a page he did not recall his grimoire having before. Thus it was assumed that Noelle, Rebecca, and Mimosa all had their own page within his grimoire now. In sense, the 4 girls could now be counted as one of his spells, but how was still a mystery to him though. They also seemed to be mostly autonomous spells as well, kind of like how Sylph, the wind spirit, was with Yuno. Sylph was actually a page in Yuno's book, yet she was able to act fully on her own without the need to be called upon all the time. Kaito's hand glowed green with healing chakra as he touched the wound on her forehead. "It's alright, just a second, okay?" She gave a small nod. "There we go," Kaito said, pulling his hand back. "All better now." The girl tentatively touched the spot, her eyes widening in amazement. Kaito smiled warmly and unsealed some fresh fruits from a scroll. Handing them to the girl, he said gently, "Here, have some. They're fresh, you know." She devoured the food quickly. While she ate, Kaito gently placed his glowing hand over the bruises on her arms and face, healing them one by one. "What's your name?" Kaito asked casually. The girl paused mid-bite. "My name is Guren," she said quietly. Kaito grinned. "Guren, huh? That's a nice name." This he put his theory into practice as her horn reappearing on her head, Nero reverted back from being a statue once again. "Pos. Ha!" Nero exclaimed. "Seem it work for you at least," Asta said. "What do you mean it worked, and is that She said, trailing off as she might have met them before, but she did not recall their names off the top of her head. "Mimosa and Rebecca," she was told. "You all seem to have a spell in my grimoire now, and apparently I can only have one of you activate at a time it seems," Asta explained. "Why did my horns vanished because of that?" Nero asked him, interested. "Apparently so, as it also seems you lucked out as you activate state is not just you animated as a statue but original normal self instead." Asta told her, "So do you have any memories from the time when you were a statue this time around?" "Cannot say, but seems that bits and pieces of my memory are missing," Nero then brought up. "Then what about your name? Do you still know what it was originally?" he asked her. "Of course my name is Nero, has not it always been?" She replied, "Though I glad you and Noelle decided to go with Luck's suggestion." Asta also thought this was true for Noelle, Rebecca, and Mimosa because they were moving on their own for the most part with just little input for Asta on time. Taritara and Sylvance Schnauzer? What kind of names were those? Not good, Asta thought, as Nero thinks that is her original name now but does not mean what he thinks it means. That Nero's memories seem to only start from the moment that she first met him. To have fully forgotten everything that she did before that point would be like to have a gap of 517 years in her memory. After all, Nero is 517 years old, even though she the 500 as a bird. She still seemed fully aware of everything that going on around her during that time. At least she is not questioning why she can become a human though, Asta thought. "Say Nero, what type of magic do you have?" he asked. "Sealing magic." "Why are you asking me this, as you should know that already?" she replied. Good, she also knows that she has sealing magic, he thought. "Alright, then the next thing I want to ask." Asta began to say, but then trailed off at what he saw. Nero had reverted back to the statue, but she was still animated though, and cocked her head as she was waiting for orders from Asta. He then looked at his grimoire and noticed that there were 2 pages dealing with the black hair girl before him. One was for Nero and the other was for Seeker Swallowtail. He was not sure why exactly, but she had 2 different pages in his grimoire. That only Nero would appear as human, while Seeker would be an animated statue just like Noelle, Mimosa, and Rebecca. Closing his grimoire and cancelling out the spell. Asta would think of something, as he could not leave them here alone, yet he could move them all either. Though Asta was thinking about how to go about moving Noelle, Nero, Mimosa, and Rebecca should be his only problems, as there was still everyone else that should be located within the Black Bull's HQ as well. Those that did not just seemingly go missing both before and after Asta was unconscious for an unknown amount of time after everyone was turned to stone. Since Rebecca and Mimosa somehow moved from wherever they were previous to here. Asta was going to check on the rest of his squad members, Gauche, Zora, Finarl, Gordon, Gray, Monga and Luck, to ensure that they had gone anywhere or could go anywhere while he was not looking. After all, if he can make Noelle, Nero, Mimosa, and Rebecca, then what if someone or something could do the same just for others? That, or what if whatever magic was used to petrify everyone in the first place allows the user to animate whoever they wanted? In the shimmering candy palace, the Charlotte family had gathered in a rare moment of stillness, all eyes turned toward their mother. At her side, Katakuri stood with folded arms, eyes focused on the bounty list in silence. "So my little Linlin heard right, huh?" Big Mom hummed, swirling her teacup. "Luffy-kuan's gotten quite bold. Forming an alliance with the rest of those brats. Do you want us to move against them?" Smoothie asked, hand resting on her sword. Big Mom leaned back, smile curling wickedly. "No, not yet. Let them believe they have strength. Let them believe they can stand shoulder to shoulder with the emperors." She set the cup down. With everyone else having suddenly vanished on him, Asta then realized something, yet the moment he went to go do, he crashed into something hard. Falling backward, he looked to see that he ran straight into Noelle, who was apparently the one animated at the moment from the ram horns on her stone head. Behind her, she carrying the others on a platform of black water. They sure react fast, Asta thought. He barely thought about going to check on them before they came to him instead. Probably with Noelle being the one to bring the others, as she has the most mana between the 4 of them, yet probably the worst control when she is not focused though. It was not just the remaining members of the Black Bulls that went missing, minus Nero and Noelle, but even Yami's personal beasts were gone as well, having not broken out their cage but seemingly just vanished as well. As if they were never there to begin with. Thus adding another layer of mystery onto what was going on with the world at the moment, as first everyone got petrified. Some of his friends ended up as spells in his grimoire with their nowhere to be found, and now there were statues just vanishing without a trace. However, that when Asta realized there was one member that he checked on but did not leave with the others. That being Henry, as he left him in his room, not really sure if moving him even as the statue was a good idea. Dracul Mihawk sheathed Yoru with a sigh as a dark-feathered messenger bat dropped a rolled-up paper at his feet. He unrolled it slowly, glancing at the faces of the 11 captains spread across the bounty section. His eyes lingered briefly on one name, Monkey D. Luffy. "So it begins," he murmured. From the castle, Perona called out lazily, "More war again? Are you going to get involved?" "No," Mihawk answered, folding the paper. "Not yet." He walked back toward the castle, boots crunching on gravel. "But the world is tilting. And when swords begin to cross again, mine won't stay sheathed. Amazon Lily, Kuja Island. I'm so proud of him." Boa Hancock clutched the newspaper to her chest, hearts fluttering in her eyes. As it seems he had somehow acquired Henry, just like how he the girls behind him. Though unlike them he was not with them, but seemingly kept in his grimoire just like his swords when not in use. Even though he could only have one they activate and animated at a time, though mostly unknown means to him. With Henry, and thus the Black Bull's HQ now a spell within his grimoire. There really was not any reason to stay here anymore. Still unsure of what attacked from behind, he woke up to find Mimosa and Rebecca statue forms around him. Even if there was probably no one there that could do anything or telling him anything at all. Going to the royal capital and seeing what he could learn from there. "Maybe I am not the only one that managed to escape what this magic was," Asta said, looking at Noelle. She merely cocked her head to the side as she clearly heard him, but he was not sure was what that reaction meant though. Hard to tell when they all had a neutral expression on their faces and their body language was that expression either. Though it was here that Asta noticed that one of them was missing, as Noel, Nero, and Mimosa were present, but Rebecca was not for some reason. Before he could go even attempt to look for, he felt Noel's petrified hand on his chest and her other hand pointing to his grimoire. The sun rose over the village hidden in the mist. Kiri Shinobi piled up the bodies of the fallen Kagaya clan members and set them ablaze. Mist Shinobi cheered in victory. Up in the trees, Kimimaro stood silently, his gaze locked on the burning corpses of his clan. After a while, Kimimaro turned and left, heading deeper into the wilderness. Kaito pushed himself off the tree branch. Well, I better get to him before that snake bastard does. With that, he body flickered away. Kaito followed Kimimaro for several kilometers, tracking him to a quiet clearing where a river flowed gently through. The boy had knelt beside the water, staring at his reflection. Kaito landed in the clearing, keeping some distance. However, Kimimaro was immediately on guard. The moment he heard the slightest movement, he whipped around, gripping a sharpened bone blade. His intense green eyes locked onto Kaito. Kaito smiled and opened his mouth to speak, but was forced to dodge as Kimimaro lunged forward. Kaito caught Kimimaro's wrist, stopping the blade mid-swing. Hey! Kimimaro twisted his body, launching a swift kick toward Kaito's head. Kaito blocked it effortlessly, then threw Kimimaro back toward his original position. The boy landed smoothly, staying firmly on his feet. Kaito quickly raised both hands in surrender. Hey, wait! I'm not here to fight, he said, keeping his voice calm. Just then all three of them animated, with Nero landing on his head, which was her usual spot. Noelle wrapped herself around his right arm and Mimosa did the same around his left. Guess that answered that question, Asta thought. Having no other reason to stay here anymore, he started his long trek toward the royal capital, which would far longer than normal, since he did not have Finral to just transport him there or anyone else that could merely fly him to the capital that way. Having decided to set out for the capital, Asta began walking towards it, as he did not really have any other means of really getting there. Sure, he was training to get better with using anti-magic, yet had learned anything to help him with makeup for his lack of ability to fly outside of his black form. Something he did not want to attempt using, as he did not know when he might actually need to use it. He was attacked once, and Mimosa looked like she had fought against something on her way to the Black Bull's hideout after all. So walking was going to be his best option at the moment. Though looking around, he did notice that it was not just people that were petrified, it was everything that had mana that was affected. Thus even the wildlife was affected along with the plants as well, making so that he was pretty much walking through a petrified forest area. Mind, Law repeated flatly. Shochi cleared his throat. I mean, Captain, you were talking tactics, but he did say the final word. He said, let's go, while pointing at a map of the sky. Penguin coughed into his fist. To be fair, it sounded decisive. Law's sword clinked as he leaned against it, shoulders stiff. I'm finding that editor, he growled. Room. Everyone scattered. Jewelry Bonnie, the Bonnie pirates. Bonnie spat a half-chewed chicken bone and slammed the paper on her table. What do you mean he's the leader? Her crew stared at her cautiously. Well, he was smiling the most, Captain. So? I smile when I beat Marines to a pulp. Why don't you come out? A low, sinister chuckle echoed through the mist. Cuckoo coo coo coo. My, you even sensed me. From the shadows, Orochimaru emerged, his piercing golden eyes glinting. Might I ask what the eldest son of our beloved fourth Hokage is doing in the Land of Water? Kaito shrugged casually. Just a mission to assess the current situation, you know? Then, tilting his head slightly, he asked, and what about you, Snake Sanin? He didn't even know the difference between a log pose and a fork. Vito scratched his head. Boss, he was at the center of the table. That's because he was sitting on it. He raged, stomping around. I ran a mafia empire. Trafalgar has a fleet. Kids got enough firepower to sink an island. And somehow Rubber Brains gets called the ringleader. Gotti, they really did you dirty, boss. Damn right they did. Urage, the Mad Monk Pirates. Urge smiled serenely. Praise be. Let the fool be king if that is the world's will. One of his crew nervously asked, So, you're okay with it, Captain? He will bear the weight of perception. We will bear the reality. They nodded slowly. Though he showed her the page where Rebecca and Henry were currently being stored and even a second page that under her original name but did not seem to even notice that what it was. Interesting how this seer girl seems to look just like me. Though how come we have never met before, she wondered out loud. Asta does not really know what to say or how to respond to her memories, only considering her time as Nero in her current state. So why did you basically summon me? I guess Nero inquired as she was having to get used to pretty much being close to like a summon now. Not sure, I was just about to make camp for the night and then you just reverted to your human form all sudden, he said. Nero then nodded as she probably had a good idea why she reverted, as she might not understand what going on or just how she lucked out to be like she was currently. Though if things worked out like she had an idea they do, then Asta might have summoned her without knowing about himself. That she somehow react to his desire in her petrified state as a result. Before I revert, there's something I want to tell you is that you need to learn how to have more than one of active at a time, Nero informed him. Can you even use one or both of your swords while I am like this currently? Asta then went to pull out one of his swords to show her that he could, though the moment he did she had reverted to a statue and stay that way until he put back his sword. Did not think you could not, as you did have one of them out the first time, she said after reverted from being a statue. Though I have an idea I would like you to try out. Nero then went about explaining her idea to Asta and then waited until he had carried it out to hear the result. We have 2 other kids with us, so we need to move fast. Kaito exhaled, shaking his head. Man, that guy is creepy as hell. Kimimaro, who had witnessed the entire terrifyingly fast fight, was speechless, his bone blade slowly lowering as he stared at Kaito with a mixture of shock and awe. Kaito had just effortlessly dispatched one of the most feared shinobi in the world, who had been hunting Kimimaro himself. Come on, Kimimaro, Kaito said, turning to the boy. We need to get out of the land of water and meet up with my team. We have 2 other kids with us, so we need to move fast. Kaito immediately crouched down and took out 2 small, tri-pronged kunai from a scroll, placing them into Kimimaro's belt. These are for transportation. Don't lose them, Kaito instructed, his voice serious. We're going to be meeting 2 other people, Hataru and another girl named Guren. Both of them have been through terrible things, just like you. Being able to just bring out certain pieces of the Black Bull's HQ was one for Henry. Until next time then, Nero said as she then reverted to her petrified state and then back into her anti-magic bird form. From there Asta had Henry bring out his room and after he went to sleep. Noelle changed back from her dragon form and seemingly standing guard. Asta awoke from his sleep noticing that Nero and Noelle were on top of him in their alternate form, an anti-bird and small dragon, though he noticed that Mimosa was here. The 3 of them did not go back into his grimoire when he recalled them like Rebecca or Henry. Instead, they assumed their alternate forms until called upon again. I'll be back in a flash. With that, Kaito vanished again, reappearing next to Hataru, Hoku, and the newly rescued Guren, who was sitting quietly and looking nervous. Okay, Guren-chan, Hoku, Kaito said, keeping his voice light, we have one more person joining our group. He's about your age, his name is Kimimaro, and he's going to be traveling with us now. He's waiting for us in the woods right here. Kaito tapped the Hiratian marker on his sleeve. Hataru nodded, immediately stepping into the role of the reassuring older sister. She smiled at Guren. We're all here to keep each other safe, Guren-chan. Come on, let's go meet him. Kaito placed his hands on all 3 children, Hataru on Hoku, and Kaito on Hataru and Guren, and with a final surge of chakra, they all vanished and reappeared in the quiet, secluded woods where Kimimaro waited. Kimimaro, who had been perfectly still, turned the instant they materialized. His sharp green eyes scanned the newcomers before settling on Kaito. Kaito stepped forward, placing a hand on Kimimaro's shoulder and guiding him toward the others. Kimimaro, this is Hataru, Hoku, and Guren. Hataru is our mission partner, and these 2 are now under our care. He then looked at the 3 children. Hoku, Guren, this is Kimimaro. He's also been through a lot, and he needs friends. His tone carried a trace of annoyance as he asked, what's he doing here? Jiraiya's grin faltered, and he face-planted onto the floor with a loud thud. Getting up with a defeated sigh, he exclaimed, "Oh, come on, kid. I already said I was sorry. Cut me some slack." Kakashi raised an eyebrow at their interaction but remained silent, turning a page in his book. Tsunade, now looking up from her work, gave Kaito a curious look. "You met with the Grand Elder of Mount Mayaboku?" Kaito shrugged nonchalantly. "I needed their help on a seal I'm working on. Speaking of which." Reaching into his pouch, he pulled out a scroll and handed it to her. "Here." Tsunade took the scroll. "What's this?" Pointing to the scroll, Kaito explained, "It's got 10 copies of a variation of the seal I'm working on. It mimics my healing bite ability, not as powerful though. It can heal minor wounds if my calculations are right. Haven't tested it on a person yet, but I thought it might be useful for missions. If it's mass-produced, it could reduce casualties." Tsunade's curiosity deepened as she examined the intricate designs. "It mimics your healing bite, huh? That could be really useful. Does it only work with your chakra?" Kaito shook his head. "No, anyone can charge it up." Yagura had issued orders to hunt down and kill any remaining Kagaya clan members, including women and children. The clone discovered the entire Kagaya clan compound had been set ablaze. The women and children were all dead. Kaito's clone infiltrated a meeting where Yagura publicly declared he had wiped out the Kagaya clan in its entirety as punishment for their treason. "That includes their women and children," Yagura announced, his expression blank. "Let this serve as a warning to everyone present." The room fell deathly silent. Yagura then announced, "As a result of today's events, I am also revoking all rights bestowed upon the clans." The room erupted in outrage, but Yagura released a wave of Biju chakra, forcing everyone into silent submission. That very night, the clan heads and high-ranking shinobi held a secret meeting to discuss Yagura's removal. Kaito's clone observed from a distance, recognizing figures like Mei Terumi, Mangetsu Hozuki, and Zabuza Momochi. They had decided on the assassination of the fourth Mizukage. Kaito sighed. "It's a good plan, but it's doomed to fail." He knew Zetsu had likely overheard everything and relayed their plans to Obito. The rebels were walking into a trap. Multiple explosions erupted at the village walls. Moments before, Mangetsu, Zabuza, and the clan heads surrounded the Mizukage's residence. They performed the hidden mist jutsu, rapidly blanketing the entire village. Explosions rang out from the village walls, drawing Yagura's loyalists away. Zabuza led his assassination squad into the Mizukage's residence. They reached the top, only to find Yagura already waiting for them, his arms folded behind his back. Zabuza attacked instantly, his katana slashing toward Yagura's neck, but Yagura blocked it effortlessly with his staff. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up," Yagura said calmly. Yomi had Henry relocate their HQ from the common region to the neutral zone that bordered the Spade Kingdom as part of the squad's mission to investigate devils. It was not a problem at the time, as they could just use Finral to get back to the capital quickly and/or fly anywhere they needed to. Those who could not fly normally or for various reasons could just get a lift like they always had in the past. "Asta, all of us are here to protect you, as we do not want anything happening to you after all. So attracting unwanted attention is not something that we should be doing at the moment," Nero told him. Nero's mind was also affected by whatever turned everyone other than Asta into statues more than she was aware of herself. Her memories as Nero and as Seeker split in half at the moment. She could only recall things she knew during her time as Nero when going by her Nero name. Asta was not able to tell how things were when she was Seeker, though she was just an animated statue at that point. "Just so you know, if something happens, I am letting one of them take over, as they are more combat-oriented than me," after all, Nero told him. Another split Asta seemed to notice between the Nero and Seeker forms that she now had. The Nero one was less combat-focused than her Seeker one was currently. If you hadn't gone running back to your adoptive parent for help, it might have been a different story. Jiraiya turned toward Kaito. "Kid, if I'd been serious, you wouldn't have even injured me. And let me tell you, you wouldn't stand a chance if I went into Sage mode." Tsunade groaned. "Enough, Jiraiya. These two are the best we've got. Kakashi is an experienced Umbu operative. They'll learn from him. Besides, she added with a smirk, Kaito knows the Hiraition. If things get too intense, they can just teleport out. Jiraiya opened his mouth to argue but froze when he noticed Kaito's eyes were closed. A minute later he opened his eyes, and the air shifted. Also, he did not know the limits of this new ability that the girls and others he could summon were at the moment. Belle might be the wind spirit Sylph, but there was a limit to how much of her power Yuno could use at a time. Same for those that used other spirits as well. Of course, Asta did not think Nero, Noel, and the others became spirits, but they mostly certainly became something that he could summon at will and or use their powers. 3 latching onto him always being active, but in state was seemingly for conversing their power. Looking around this village, Asta was better able to see what was going on at the moment. He saw that people were not even aware of what happened for the most part. There were clearly signs of combat, but there were also signs of those who were just going about their daily lives without any knowledge that they were to be turned into stone statues at all. It was seemingly done in an instant before they could even realize it happened. Nero really was lucky she was able to see this coming in time to do something about it, Asta thought as he looked around the village. Though he was not the only one, there was someone else that was seemingly looking around the village as well. This was a girl statue wearing a short, pale green sleeveless dress and no shoes. She animated the statue, the first one that Asta had seen himself beside the one that he had the ability to use himself since everything had started. The girl statue then, upon noticing Asta, ran over to him and started trying to drag him in the direction of the capital itself. "Hey Nero, can you tell me what she wants exactly?" Asta asked. "Apparently Belle wants you to meet with her master, the wind spirit Yuno," she told him, being able to communicate with animated statues given the unique state Nero's existence was at the moment. "The wind spirit Yuno," Asta stated, confused. "That is what she claims, as she was informed by her master to come look for you." Though she seemed annoyed that she had to do this, however, she did not want to leave her master's side, Nero informs him. Asta being Asta meant he had no magic or mana at all. "I just caught him spying on you guys the other day." Hataru blinked in surprise. "Spying?" "Yeah," Kaito said, taking a bite of his dango. "And then there's the other thing. He's supposed to be Naruto's godfather, but he hasn't visited Naruto. Not even once. If Mom and I weren't around, I can't shake the feeling Naruto would have been abandoned by him. And worse, the third might have brainwashed him into being Konoha's weapon. You know what I mean?" Hataru's expression softened. "Oh," she said quietly. She didn't know what to say, so she simply walked beside him in silence. The two continued their way back to the Hyuga compound. If she was not around, then Asta would have had no one to translate for him, as apparently animated statues were able to speak to one another using mana somehow. Not having mana meant that Asta would not be able to pick on this in any way, shape or form, but Nero could somehow, because she was half statue herself. Why was Yuno now being considered the wind spirit and the former one just human size and seemingly human version of herself at the moment? These were questions that both Asta and Nero had, as they had no clue as to what was going on at the moment. However, it was clear that something happened after everyone had turned to stone, and then before Asta woke up after being attacked, then knocked out by something. Something that Asta seemingly either forgot about or just has not bought, but again, since he had not said anything about it, it happened. Asta found it interesting that Belle, the now former wind spirit, was complaining as they were heading back to where Yuno was, apparently in the direction of the capital. It was they both, Asta and Nero, found out something during this journey that they were being taken on alone. Kushina nodded and led Kaito out, chatting softly about making his favorite rice balls for lunch. Once they were gone, Minato's expression hardened, calm, but deeply troubled. He set the dishes down, leaned against the counter, and closed his eyes. Kaito didn't just dream that. It was too specific, too structured, too real. He remembered each detail Kaito described. Masked man. Attack during childbirth. Nine Tails extraction. Hostage situation. Their deaths sealing the beast. But one thing disturbed him above everything else. Kaito knew Kushina contained the 9 tails. That information was classified beyond classified. Even ANBU didn't know. Kaito was too young. They never discussed it openly. But when the clone team reached the Terumi clan compound, everything changed. The moment they stepped onto the grounds, the lead clone felt it. A massive chakra, sharp and hot like molten rock. Mei Terumi. One clone muttered, of course she'd be the problem. They cast Temple of Nirvana anyway. Mei's head drooped. Then her eyes snapped open. Her hands blurred. Release. The genjutsu shattered instantly. She shot to her feet, kunai in hand, scanning for intruders. Genjutsu? Here? Does Yagura know about the coup? Before she could react further, a clone flickered in front of her. She spat a stream of blazing molten lava. Lava release. Melting apparition. Kaito dodged, hands held up. Stop. It was here that Henry proved the most useful, as using him to summon a single room large enough to house him, Belle, and Asta. It did not have to be completely hidden, either just not literally out in the open for everyone to see. Like, set it up in an open area where the room would be the only thing that was around in the general area. No, this was someone that it could fit, and you would not normally expect anyone to be, thus no one would look over there. Also being influenced by Asta's anti-magic, the same as the other that was now a part of his grimoire. This also gave some anti-magic properties, thus making it less detectable by anyone who used mana. So Belle, tell me more about Yuno, Asta asked. The remaining clones swept the compound, gathering all unconscious civilians, children, non-shinobi, and a few young trainees. The elders, Kaito, deliberately left behind. Once everyone was secured, chakra flared. And they all vanished. Kaito watched the battle unfold as the coup collapsed. Yagura tore through the Terumi leadership. Zabuza retreated. Mangetsu was running for his life. Kaito evaluated Yagura with grim clarity. Even before being a perfect Jinchuriki, he was strong. But now? He's easily at Sannin level. Maybe higher. The strongest Kage alive right now. Mangetsu stood no chance. Then Kaito's eyes widened. In the original timeline, Ao freed Yagura with his Byakugan. But now, Ao doesn't have one. Because of me. A chill ran down his spine. Did I doom Kirigakure by taking Ao's Byakugan? He didn't have time to dwell. Mangetsu was fleeing, barely alive. I need to save him. Kaito flickered away. He appeared beside Mangetsu, the boy barely conscious, clutching his severed arm. Yagura loomed above them, Biju cloak shifting into version 2, murderous intent radiating. Before the Mizukage could strike, Kaito blurred forward. His foot slammed into Yagura's jaw, launching him through the air. Chains wrapped around Kaito's leg, hidden beneath a genjutsu to disguise their origin. The moment Yagura flew backward, Kaito's body flickered. He grabbed Mangetsu's shoulder and teleported them away. They were now using anti-magic to replicate what they could once do with magic apparently. Thus while it looked like the normal room of the Black Bull's HQ, it was composed entirely of anti-magic. Thus all magic was being countered from without and absorbed from within, it seems. Asta was unaffected either way because he lacked mana in the first place. What allowed him to use his anti-magic grimoire in the first place and made him immune to whatever turned everyone else to stone statues through petrifying them? If they are just using anti-magic to replicate their original magic, then how would that affect Mimosa's healing abilities, Asta thought. She was still able to heal him apparently, but would he attempt to use her healing on others to have the opposite effect, or would it even be able to work given everyone but him was a statue? Nero might be an exception, since she considered a part of his grimoire after all. Probably why she was unaffected by being in a room of anti-magic. If this version of Belle is connected and powered by Yuno, then this might be a sign to him that Belle has managed to find me possibly, Asta thought. The reasoning behind it was very simple, as if Belle is being animated by magic, then no longer moving as well as being cut off from her completely would be a sign that she had managed to find Asta. Not only that, but she was currently with him as well. And that wraps up today's episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother. Kaito's journey is only getting more intense, and the future of the ninja world is changing with every step he takes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share the video with other Naruto fans, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading them. See you in the next episode.